If it weren't for the prophecies of the Bible, we would be really confused right now because everything is in a state of flux in our world. One minute we're on the side of ISIS in Syria trying to bring down Bashar al-Assad, Bashar al-Assad. The next moment we're fighting against ISIS next door in Iraq. And one moment we're the enemy of Iran, the bitter enemy of Iran. The next moment we're siding with Iran against ISIS. It's like, who's on first? Who's on second? What's going on? Are we pitching? Are we catching? I mean, that's the kind of a confused world we find ourselves in right now. So where's the sanity? How can we make some sense of all this? Well, fortunately, there is something that doesn't change. You know, Jesus Christ said, I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever. And God's word is forever settled. The prophecies of the Bible pierce through the fog like a sharp beacon. We know what's going to happen. We know what's coming. We can list the events way ahead of time because we have this wonderful guide called the Bible, God's Word. So let's return to what is actually going on in the Middle East right now. It is absolutely boiling. Our attention has been diverted temporarily by the 3 young men in Israel that have now been found brutally murdered with their hands tied behind their back. Unbelievable. The trauma, the sadness in Israel is palpable. You can feel it in the air. I was on a direct connection to Jerusalem this morning, talking to some of the people there, and you can feel this heaviness. Where does it all end? What does it mean? A lot of them are saying, where was God? Some said, we prayed too late. Everybody's trying to make some sense of all this. And we're going to do that on the air today, and your calls are going to be accepted today. The number to call if you want to be on the air with us, 877-END-TIME. That's 877-363-8463. But let me start off with this article. It comes from Debka. Debka a lot of times carries things ahead of time. This particular article is entitled, Middle East Sizzling Armed U.S. Drones Over Baghdad, Saudi Jordanian Tanks Deploy. Here's what's happening. The Obama administration announced Friday, June the 27th, that unmanned aerial vehicles flying over Baghdad would henceforth be armed. Now, up till now, they've merely been serving as a spy in the sky, as a guide. Now then, that's changing. This is a considerable escalation. So now they will be armed and they will defend the U.S. Embassy in the Green Zone. Now you got to really appreciate this U.S. Embassy. It is our largest embassy in the world. We built it to house, believe it or not, 15,000 people. I mean, after all, that's a small town. 15,000 people in this massive fortified embassy right in Baghdad. The article goes on to say the embassy was originally assigned the task of guardian of Iraq's central government and symbol of post-Saddam national unity. These roles have remained out of reach ever since the Americans invaded Iraq in 2003. Today, the armed drones overhead are reduced to holding back the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, the ISIS, and its local Sunni allies from overrunning the Green Zone and seizing the embassy, most of whose 5,000 staff were evacuated as a precaution. According to this article, about 5,000 people have been living in the embassy recently, many or most of them now evacuated. The article goes on to report that General Martin Dempsey was referring to the Haditha Dam on the Euphrates. ISIS fighters have been battering the town of Haditha on and off for some days. Its dam is the key to the water supply of most of Iraq, including Baghdad. With its capture, Al-Qaeda's affiliates will have gained control of northern Iraq's oil refineries and pipeline networks. So this is for the heart and soul of Iraq, to say the least. When you are reaching for the oil, that's the revenue source, and you're reaching for the water, that's the life source of Iraq. And that's where the battle is really centered right now. In addition to that, John Kerry laid out another piece of the Iraq-Syria plan. He estimated that the Syrian rebel recruits enlisted from among the nearly 1 million Syrian refugees sheltering in Jordan could be deployed in Iraq for fighting ISIS. Now, what's that mean? Well, what happened was, when all the refugees fled Syria to get away from Bashar al-Assad, they came down into Jordan, about 1 million of them. The Americans and the Jordanians saw an opportunity to put together an army out of these refugees and to train them, and they have been. We have been using our military expertise. We've been using all of our resources, and we've been training these people. We sent them back into southern Jordan, actually southern Syria, to create a buffer between Jordan and Syria, and also between Syria and Israel. Well, we've been doing that for a while, but all of a sudden things have changed because now the more imminent threat is in Iraq. So now Kerry is saying we can take these same soldiers and we can allow them to fight against the Islamic State, as it is now calling itself, in Iraq. You know, they've called themselves the Islamic State now, and they're calling for Muslims worldwide to follow them. Now, we're talking about 1.7 billion Muslims, and today they have named this. This is a tremendous call because many Muslims around the world yearn for the days of Islamic empire. I mean, after all, the Ottoman Empire ruled for many, many years. It's only been out of power since World War I, so they see this as this our time to return to power and to dominate the world. And they do fully intend someday to install an Islamic State around the world. So that's what's going on right now. And the people, the ISIS, they've now shortened their name to simply Islamic State. I want to read for you exactly what they're saying because I think you need to hear word for word. The Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, the jihadist group which has seized territory in Iraq and Syria, on Sunday declared itself an Islamic caliphate and called on factions worldwide to pledge their allegiance, Reuters reported, citing a statement posted on Islamist websites and on Twitter. According to the report, the group has shortened its name to Islamic State and proclaimed its leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi as caliph, which is the head of the Islamic State. He is the imam and the caliphate for the Muslims everywhere. The group's spokesman, Abu Muhammad al-Adnani, said in the statement, which was translated into several languages and read out in an Arabic audio speech. Accordingly, the Iraq and the Levant, in the name of the Islamic State, is henceforth removed from all official deliberations and communications, and the official name is the Islamic State. From the date of this declaration, he said, according to Reuters, the Sunni Muslim group follows al-Qaeda's hardline ideology, but is not affiliated with al-Qaeda, which has renounced ISIS. It seeks to recreate a medieval type caliphate, erasing borders from the Mediterranean to the Gulf. Now that includes Israel, of course. So they're envisioning this huge caliphate from the Mediterranean Sea all the way to the Persian Gulf, which would encompass Saudi Arabia, it would encompass Iraq, it would even reach almost into Iran. It would take care of Lebanon. It would take care of Jordan. This whole area, they're envisioning this as a huge caliphate. Now, it seeks to recreate a medieval-style caliphate, erasing borders from the Mediterranean to the Gulf. It deems Shiite Muslims to be heretics deserving death. Now, the Shiite Muslims, of course, are mainly Iran and part of Iraq, plus Bashar al-Assad is a form of Shiite Muslim. The rest in that area are Sunnis. Remember, the division in the Muslim world, 85% Sunni, 15% Shia. Now, these people have a dream of killing off all the Shia. What's 15% of 1.7 billion? We're talking about 200 million people possibly in this war that they envision. Now, it is incumbent upon all Muslims to pledge allegiance to him, this new caliphate, and support him. The legality of all emirates, groups, states, and organizations becomes null by the expansion of the calipha's authority and arrival of its troops to their areas. The statement was quoted by Reuters. Fighters from the group overran the Iraqi city of Mosul last month in a lightning action and have advanced towards Baghdad. In Syria, they have captured territory in the north and east along the frontier with Iraq. Jordan on Friday deployed massive army forces on its Iraqi border, including tanks, army vehicles, missile launchers, and soldiers, fearing an ISIS move into the Hashemite kingdom. So here we are in America, snug, safe, and sound, we think. But around the world, there are armies on the march. Furthermore, these armies are threatening some of our closest allies. I'm looking at an article right now. This comes from the Jerusalem Post. Israel, U.S. prepared to help Jordan fight ISIS. U.S. officials state that Jordan could ask Israel and the United States for as much help as they can get if Islamist insurgents pursue full-on assault of Hashemite kingdom. Israel and the U.S. may be prepared to aid Jordan on the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria eyes. The Jewish state's eastern neighbors, the Daily Beast on Saturday, quoted U.S. officials as saying, we actually have a mutual defense pact with Jordan and with Israel. The three of us are in military alliance right now. Consequently, if Jordan is invaded, will the U.S. be involved? You better believe we will. That's already been set in stone for a long time. Now, behind the scenes, Israeli diplomats have told their American counterparts that Israel would be prepared to take military action to save the Hashemite kingdom, stated the Daily Beast. Now, the Islamists would probably love to get Israel into the fight, because once Israel goes in fighting against the followers of Islam, then all the 1.5 billion Islamists around the world, they come into the fight against Israel.